class, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the 14 books that I managed to read in May. My reading this month was so all over the place. I picked up the most random assortment of books, I feel like, and only managed to read 3 books off of the TBR that I had set, but I can't complain too much because honestly, I still had so much fun reading. And we're gonna start by talking about A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. I read A River Enchanted back last September, I want to say, and I've been putting A Fire Endless on nearly every single TBR, and Katie actually bought this for me. I don't remember why. Wait, no, let me see the note. What did she say? Oh, it was a 15K gift. She bought it kind of as a joke to play into that bit for I could own it and still not have read it, but I just randomly was in the mood to finally get to this book, and I read it physically and it was absolutely everything and more. I did end up giving it a 4.75. There were minor things about it that I didn't quite enjoy. However, I was able to dive back into the story so effortlessly. I feel like Rebecca Ross really did a good job with recapping the previous book. Well, not info dumping all of that straight away, and I was able to sort out the characters, and it was just such a phenomenal read. And I can't decide if I like the Letters of Enchantment duology or the Elements of Cadence duology more. It's just so whimsical and so magical in the way that each spirit is connected to a different element and how humans interact with those elements, and just who is like the higher power controlling the other elements, and the reveals at the end and the action sequences and just where everything led was absolutely spectacular. Something massive did happen at the end of this book. I was in such denial for the longest time. However, I think this book wrapped up so beautifully, and it wrapped up the duology so just effortlessly, and I truly am in love with Rebecca Ross's writing. I can't wait to see what her next series will be. I think there was a series, I can't remember which series someone recommended to me. I don't know if it was her YA, like Sisters of Sword and Song, Dreams That Lie Beneath. It might have been one of those two, or the Queen's Rising duology, I can't remember, but I would love to read some more from Rebecca Ross because I don't know if I can wait. I don't know if I can wait until she comes out with a new release. Regardless though, absolutely spectacular. 4.75. I'm so happy I got around to reading this duology, and she just knows how to write good romance, and I'm a sucker for it every single time. That was a little bit of an odd pickup, mostly because I didn't plan on picking that up and I just picked it up on a whim. Then I read an F1 autobiography, which is The Mechanic, The Secret World of the F1 Pit Lane. I love me some Formula 1. My dad watched it for years and I got kind of annoyed of hearing the commentators, but then suddenly last year I was in it. And now this year I am so in it. I've been watching every single race as they happen. It's been so delightful, and this was very, very interesting. We're following a mechanic in the McLaren pit crew. This was the time when actually Lewis Hamilton was a part of the team, and it was just so interesting, along with, oh goodness, I forget his name, Fernando Alonso, and that whole rivalry, which was crazy. And then it was also Kimi Räikkönen and his dominance in McLaren. If you like F1, honestly, it was a really quick read. I think it's under 300 pages. Yes, a little over 200 pages. Nothing super outstanding to say about the writing or the stories, really. It was just entertainment. It was a lot more gossip and drama, which was fun, but also so interesting because F1 is really a sport for the rich, and it shows so much with what goes down in this book. So it was interesting. I think I gave it 4 stars, nothing too special, but I enjoyed my time reading it. Another unexpected pickup was Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This was a reread for me, and I think I gave this 4.5 stars the first time I read it, and I think that rating still stands true. I was just really in the mood to pick up more romance because summer feels like it's already here, especially in Florida. It's so hot here. I think this just caught my eye. I didn't have any new romance books that I wanted to get to quite yet, so I just did a nice little reread of Love Theoretically. I just love how Jack will call out Elsie on her bullshit, and how Elsie has to stop being a people pleaser and has to stop morphing her personality to fit in. It's just wonderful, and Jack really pushes her to do that and to get outside of her comfort zone and show like the real her and really stand up for herself. And I loved getting to see her journey with being able to do that, as well as their journey of just falling in love and their relationship. The romance is just so beautiful, and honestly, this is one of my favorite Ali Hazelwood books, hands down. So I am so happy that I did reread it. I have no regrets, but it was definitely unexpected. I did read a romance book that I've been meaning to pick up for literally ages. And I finally got to it, and that is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Now, the only thing I really knew about this book was it had no spice and that our main character was a bodyguard in disguise acting as a fake girlfriend for our main character who's kind of a famous movie star. And I don't know what it is, but I think I found all the tropes that I love in this book, which is small town, like tiny town romance sort of thing, except for they go to Jack's family's ranch. So it's not even like small town, it's like secluded in the middle of nowhere, forced proximity, that sort of thing. The fake dating, because Jack doesn't want his family to be worried about him needing a bodyguard, so she's acting as his fake boyfriend. And I love fake dating and I love tiny town romances, and it was just so fun. I gave this 4 stars. It wasn't like a new favorite, but it was just so much fun getting to be in that atmosphere of this like tiny secluded farmhouse. I will say though, the ending, the 3rd act breakup was blowing my mind. I was like, what is going on? Like, the stakes have never been higher, but I also couldn't stop laughing at the premise of why Jack had a bodyguard in the first place, like what the major threat was so utterly ridiculous. This book definitely took a turn in an unexpected direction with like them raising the stakes or whatnot, but it was just so funny and fun, and I really like jived with the humor. Yeah, I just really liked their characters. They were just fun to hang out with for a little bit. This is a bit of a shorter romance. It's just clocking in at like 4 pages over 300. Nice, fun, quick read, and I think I read this all in one sitting, so I could not put it down. It was just a page turner, I suppose you could say. My favorite romance that I picked up this month though was Funny Story by Emily Henry. 5 stars! All of the stars to this new Emily Henry book. I was very scared to pick up this book after reading Happy Place because I did not really jive with Happy Place. However, the premise of Funny Story sounds so utterly ridiculous that I was like, surely Emily Henry can pull this off and it'll be an upbeat, cheery book. And while it doesn't start off upbeat and cheery, how the 2 main characters' relationship grows, it has the forced proximity, it has the fake dating. Like I already mentioned, I'm such a sucker for fake dating, so you know I ate this up. So this book, the premise is we have Daphne and we have Peter, and then we have Miles and we have Petra. Now Daphne and Peter, they're fiancés, and then Miles and Petra, they were dating. However, suddenly Peter decides that he's actually in love with his childhood best friend, who is Petra. Basically, there's 2 breakups, and then Miles and Daphne are left in a roommate situation. It's so ridiculous and so obviously depressing in the beginning because they're both going through these horrible breakups. But Daphne was such like a wee girl, like her entire identity was really not necessarily her, but more of a reflection of what Peter liked. So it was like, oh, we'd go to Peter's favorite restaurants and we'd hang out with Peter's friends, and she kind of lost her identity after they broke up, and Miles really helps Daphne discover who she is as an individual person, who she is to be able to go out on her own. There's also a beautiful story about friendship and new friendship, and it's spectacular. My favorite Emily Henry book, I think I can safely say. I am wanting to reread People We Meet on Vacation this summer, and I'm gonna have to compare the 2 because I read that a couple years ago now, so that's been my favorite up until this point, so we'll see. It checked all the boxes. It was so fun. I was on the plane while reading it and I was laughing at the book. I was almost crying, but then I was like, I'm on the plane. I cannot be crying in front of people. That would be not good. I just had a delightful time, and I'm so happy that I was able to give this book all of the stars because it deserves every single star. All 5 of them. Then I finally managed to finish Malice. I was a good chunk of the way into this book at the beginning of May, and I finally got around to finishing it. There's one thing that I have learned about John Gwynne books. I'm about halfway through Valor, and I'm about halfway through The Shadow of the Gods. Don't ask me why I'm reading them at the same time. Bad decisions were made. However, I just have to take my time with these books because when I do, I really enjoy them. I just have to really slow down. His writing is a little clunkier than I think I typically would enjoy, but again, when I slowed down, I really enjoyed it. I did give this 4 stars. On further reflection, it might be more of like a 3.75, mostly because there was Corbin, who I really, really loved following. He was the young boy that we got to see grow into a warrior throughout this book, and there's some sort of prophecy surrounding him, but some of the characters got lost on me, and by that I mean I forgot which character was which, and there was just a lot of characters in this book, and I really struggled along with differentiating everyone. This sounds so silly because I read the whole book, but I had to go and read like a summary about this book to like recap myself before starting Valor, because I was confused on certain plot lines that I feel like were so important, but I was so confused. And then it explained certain things because certain characters that I was like, I thought you were the good guy. I was just silly and not understanding the foreshadowing. So I think some of this book was lost on me, but I think that was a me problem because I took a very long time to read this book. I read many books in between finishing this book, so I think I would have enjoyed it more if I really took my time with it, which I did, but like took my time while reading it. I feel like I read it a little too fast. I'll report back, I guess, next month of whether or not I like The Shadow of the Gods more than Malice. This book definitely felt very setup-y, I guess. Like, it felt like a setup for the rest of the series. There was a lot of just introduction with characters, and there's definitely, like, the plot happens. There's definitely things that go down in this book, but I feel like more major and critical events are going to go down in the following books in the series. I loved the atmosphere of this book. Obviously, it's inspired by the Middle Ages. It's giants versus man, and I love that so much. Like, Corbin really was my favorite character along with Veritas. He was like the first sword to Nathar, and I really liked the warriors. I loved getting to follow the warriors. We also had, oh, I can't remember her name. It was like this cranky witch healer who had a talking crow, and it was delightful. Cannot remember her name. She was very fun. And Corbin also has a sister named Quinn, and her character was also a delight. I really like how hot-headed she was, and it felt very realistic for her type of character at her age. There was definitely lots of moments that lost me, where I mixed up certain characters or just lost the plot a little, but that probably was me, so take my everything with a grain of salt. Another book inspired by the Middle Ages, of course, Ranger's Apprentice, Book 8, The Kings of Clonmel. I am perpetually rereading Ranger's Apprentice. If you don't know, it is my all-time favorite series in the world, and my current goal with this reread is to annotate every location that these characters go. That way I can actually create a true to series map, because the map in the beginning, oh, there's no map in the beginning of this book, but the map in the beginning of these books are not accurate, and I want to make an accurate depiction because I'm a freaking nerd, and that is like what I want to do. So we finished book 8. I've been averaging about like one Ranger's Apprentice book a month, so at this rate it'll take me all year, if not more, to actually like complete the reread, to start the drawing, but it's fine. Everything's fine. I love book 8. It's definitely slower than a lot of the other books in the series, but book 8 is the start of a arc that spreads between books 8 and books 9, and I am almost done book 9. I just didn't quite finish it before the end of May. We get a good like battle scene. We get to like destroy a cult in this book. There's a lot going on, and I love traveling with our main characters. They're so delightful. Their banter is delightful. Their wittiness, the dialogue is just phenomenal, and I love it so much. So obviously 5 out of 5 for the reread. This is probably the most out-of-pocket book that I picked up just randomly. I've been like dying to read Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid for a long time, like ever since it came out, which I think was 2 years ago or a year ago. Wow, it was 2 years ago now. Yeah, I read Malibu Rising. That was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Loved it. Last year I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Loved it. Finally got around to reading Carrie Soto Is Back. Now, I grew up being a competitive athlete, and my goal was actually to do that in college, and obviously when I was a child I was like, I'm gonna go to the Olympics as a gymnast. Girlie, sit down. So I love books that involve sports. I will always love books that involve sports. I love sports so much, and it felt so much like a biography or an autobiography. Obviously it's literary fiction, so it has that real world setting. But we get to follow Carrie Soto and in her return as a tennis player. So she broke a world record and then retired. However, this younger girl is coming up and she is very close to beating Carrie Soto's record. So she decides to make her grand comeback and try to stop her from beating her record for she can keep it. And it's such an interesting battle because we get to see Carrie grow up and how so much of her father's decisions really shaped her to who she is, along with a lot of maybe like psychological elements that wouldn't typically be prominent in kids who enjoy sports, but because she was coached by her father, there's such an interesting dynamic between a young athlete and a coach. And I can absolutely say that from experience, where you have such a deep bond with this person and you trust them so much. And I'm sure with people who are like coaching their kids, being coached by like their father, that's an even deeper connection. But I remember when I was a kid, I was so close to my coaches, and it took me a long time after getting out of sports to realize that they're human too. They are not perfect, and the things that they said to me while coaching me, they're not all true. So there's like a lot of like overcoming that mental games that coaches can play with athletes, especially when they're young and more naive. It's so interesting to see her journey of how she grew up and then how she acted as an adult, because I personally did not like Carrie Soto's character, and I think we were meant to feel that way. I liked her ambition and her comeback and being like, okay, so what? I'm the oldest person on the court. I don't know if I mentioned, but this is tennis. They're doing tennis in this book. But so what? I'm the oldest person on the court. Like, I still have the skills. I still have the determination. But it also was realistic with what she could accomplish because of her age. Like, especially when you're an athlete, growing up doing the sport so intensely, so competitively, you're gonna have damages to your body. Like, your body's not built for that, to sustain that sort of lifestyle for that many years. So obviously she can't be as quick as her 20-year-old self at almost 30. I don't remember if she's 30 or almost 30. Yeah, she's 37. So she's like almost 40. Sorry, I got that wrong. But like, she was in her peak during her 20s. You're not gonna feel the same in your, late 30s, early 40s as you did when you were 20. I'm 22 and I do not feel the same as I did when I was in high school doing sports as a teenager. So I like the storyline itself of being about overcoming resistance and being like, age is just a number, so what? Like, I can show you what I can do, and making a comeback. And I liked how it felt realistic. She wasn't suddenly winning like game after game after game after being retired for 6 years. It was a realistic, slow comeback, and the perseverance was absolutely something to be admired, but her character wasn't my favorite, but it made sense because it was almost a reflection of how her dad raised her as being a competitive athlete. And I feel like there definitely are stories of athletes like Carrie Soto who are not well liked. She was not well liked by the media at all, and that can also have an impact on how you yourself can view yourself, right? If like the eyes of the world think you're this cold-hearted bitch and you're just like, I just want to focus, I just want to play the game that I love, I don't want to play into all this like politics and drama. It was a really good read. Honestly, I gave it a 4 stars. It was a solid 4 stars. It wasn't like an absolute favorite, but I could not put it down. I think I read this completely in one sitting as well. I picked it up, wanted to read like a chapter or two, and I ended up reading the entire thing. So it really is a gripping story. I also read Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. I was listening to the audiobook and I finished it at the beginning of May. I gave this a 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed the book near the ending when the romance and the plot sort of picked up. However, in the beginning, it really felt like it was reading like a history novel, which is nice if you like that sort of stuff. It really delved into a lot more with like the Arthurian legend and that sort of thing, and politics between kingdoms and religion and what's the driving force in this country. However, I went into this book expecting a silly, goofy, fun time because we have Gwen, who is betrothed to Arthur. However, they are not in love because Gwen is gay for a knight, a female knight, the only female knight, and Art is gay for Gwen's brother. So I was expecting just like a silly, funny, goofy, fun time, and when we started getting like Arthurian legend and history lessons, it took me out a little bit. I did listen to the audiobook, and I think that also diminished my enjoyment of it a little bit, which typically isn't the case, but the narrator for Arthur was a little bit too over the top with his narration, where lines that I think I would typically find funny, I found just so annoying because of how he delivered the line. Part of the enjoyment was lost on me due to those factors, but I don't regret reading it. It definitely was a little bit of a silly, goofy, fun time, and it was very gay, So like, what more can you ask for? I also read City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, and this was for the Women's in Words book club. So if you've read this book and you want a more like spoiler-filled discussion, I always link the Women's in Words live show in a playlist, so you can check that out. It is over on Katie's channel. Now, I did give this a 3.5 stars. I think I would have enjoyed this a little bit more had I not had to have read it at the moment that I did. I really fell out of my fantasy mood towards the end of the month, and I was running out of time to read this book. I had a lot of things going on in my personal life in May that made it a very, very rocky month towards the middle end. I wanted to just read what I wanted to read, so being forced to have to read this book was just... it diminished my enjoyment of it a little bit, but again, that's a me problem. I really enjoyed the beginning of this book following Nari. She was such an interesting character, how she's living on the streets and making her own path in terms of surviving. And then we get swept into Davabad, which is this, you know, mythical, magical city, and there's lots of politics, and I typically love politics in books. I love when they're in kingdoms and there's just like plot afoot and you never know who to trust. And that was prevalent, but I don't know why it was such a miss for me. One thing that I do love about S.A. Chakraborty's writing is it's so easy, and I typically enjoy her humor as well. I did read The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi last month, and I enjoyed her writing style. It was very easy to pick up and dive into, but there was just so many elements that kept being introduced, and I think because I wasn't in the right mindset to pick it up, a lot of these were lost on me, and I felt like the book was just a little bit too long, and certain elements, especially the romance, felt so unnecessary. But the plot and the reveals at the end, I really enjoyed. I just wish there was a little bit of trimming in the middle of the book, for the pace was a little more consistent to where I was interested the entire way through. However, I think part of the lower rating for this book is also because I had to force myself to read it, and obviously that's never fun when you have to do that. So take my review with a grain of salt. I know a lot of people absolutely adore this series, so maybe trust their opinions a little bit more with this particular book. And the last books that I read / manga were volumes 7, 8, 9, and 10 of Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Now, I read books 7 through 9 at the library back in Texas, and then when I went to my house, I basically immediately ordered it and read it all in one go, and I was hoping against all hopes that it would not end on a cliffhanger, and it did. The particular like side quest arc that we're on in this book is so interesting and really delving more into the magic of this world. I feel like this world has a very soft magic system where so much is possible, but I love it so much. Now, if you don't know, this is now my all-time favorite manga ever, but we're following Frieren. She's not necessarily like an immortal elf, but like elves do live like a very long time. So we have her as an elven mage, and 80 years previously she saved the world from the Demon King. And now she's on a new quest with a new group of people, and because of her past companions, she's wanting to learn more about people since she realized that their life is so short. So they're on this main quest, but there's a lot of side quests that these characters go on, which I love. I love the meandering and just the silliness of the characters and some of the things that they get up to, and this was so delightful. Honestly, so fun. Books 7 and 8, I want to say, have been probably, I think it's books 7 and 8, that particular storyline. They're like raiding a dungeon essentially, and there's like this big group of mages that are together for reasons. I don't really want to like go too deep into it in case you want to go into it knowing nothing, but that was so interesting with the creatures that they had to defeat and the magic, and just everything was phenomenal, and we had some really fun characters. And book 9 was a little slower, but book 10 really picked up the pace in terms of where we're leading to. I'm hoping I'm not getting my volumes all mixed up. I did read these literally like back to back to back to back. I would finish one of the volumes, set it down, and immediately pick up the next one. I was that obsessed with it. Every single volume has gotten 5 stars. There has not been a single one where I'm like, ooh, that felt so fillery, or like, ooh, that really like slowed down on like the plot progression or like character development. Like, I had that problem with Spy Family. There's been certain books in that series where I'm like, ooh, like I feel like that was kind of a pointless volume. But with this book, Every single volume I've been absolutely obsessed with. I love the art style. I loved it so much that I watched the anime. I'm not an anime girly. I want to be so bad, but I'm so bad at finishing shows. I made it my mission in May to finish that series before my Crunchyroll free trial expired, and I did it, and it was phenomenal. The soundtrack is so beautiful to read to. You should look up and listen to the soundtrack. It's so good. It's such good ambiance too, especially if you're reading anything fantasy. It's stunning. I love it. And thus concludes my wrap up for May. All 14 books that I read. I made a joke in April being like, I really hope that May, my momentum keeps going with all the books that I read. And I think it did pretty well, especially considering the absolute shit show that my personal life was in May. However, we're trying to start June off with a bang. It hasn't really been going well because obviously this video is a touch late because of life still kicking my ass, but I'm hoping that'll be fine. I do feel a bit under the weather, so if I had a little bit less energy in this video, that is why, but I really wanted to get this up. Anyways, I want to give a massive thank you to my Patreons. If you're ever looking for some more exclusive content from me, we have quarterly read-a-thons. We just wrapped up our very first one and it was so delightful. Our next one is actually in July because I had to delay it so much. But our next readathon is in July. It was literally so fun. We also have exclusive videos, exclusive reading vlogs, monthly buddy read pics. It's been so fun. So if you ever want some more content from me, that is where you can find it. Thanks again for watching, and I really hope to see you in the next one. Toodles!